that trust looks like repentance. For us today, that trust looks like turning away from your sin, turning away from these lesser things you look to, and trusting in God. It looks like fearing the Lord more than you fear the world around you and walking in obedience to his commands. And ultimately, it looks like placing your faith in him for our only hope of salvation. And the fate of those who trust themselves is to lie down in torment. You see, some chose to trust themselves rather than God. Earlier in Isaiah chapter 7, it talks about King Ahaz, who was so fearful of his neighbors who were bringing armies to his front door that he made a deal with a much larger empire and ultimately lived under their rule because he made a deal with the devil, right? He made a deal with a more powerful opponent. He chose to trust himself rather than God. We can look at the example of Adam and Eve, who, when God came to the garden, made excuses rather than repenting. And we do the same thing today, right? We sell out our faith to seek the protection of a political party, or we compromise our beliefs to be accepted by the world we live in, or we take shortcuts on the path of obedience to try and get ahead in business or in life. We kindle our own fires. We trust ourselves rather than trusting God, and this always leads to catastrophe. Right? We can't fix the problem. We are limited and weak. We're dependent. And so we end up with a greater problem than we began with. We end up in further bondage to a political leader. We end up in bondage to the culture or to our own sin, and we end up worse off than we were with our original problem. Sin may seem wise, but it is always foolishness. Following something other than God may seem wise, but it is always foolishness.